Thank you so much. Once again, I welcome everyone for joining us today. Thank you. Today marks the second day of our event, of our Educators Conference. We are continuing from yesterday, which was the formal date. And yesterday we had Bunmi and Nani taking us through the impact we should have across the classroom, outside the classroom. Let me formally introduce myself. My name is Etienne No Ntuk. I am the director for programs for the Emerald Edu Concept and Services, and we are glad to have you with us this night. Thank you for joining. So, like I said yesterday, we discussed outside the classroom activities, and our host took us through the orthodox learning, the orthodox methods, and how we can participate in different learning models to include every child in the classroom. She mentioned a lot of models, a lot of patterns we should follow, and I would, like I said earlier, I would encourage everyone to look at our YouTube channel, Emerald Edu Concept and Services. Subscribe, watch the video if you had missed yesterday. So I'll go ahead to invite the executive director to introduce our partners and projects. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. A quick one, just before we start the program live. I want to introduce some of um, our projects and programs that we are going to have, and of course, we are going to be having this program soon. The first one that we want to talk about, is the STEM educator program. We mentioned this yesterday. We and the partners, the science school, we are going to be having a STEM program for educators. It's just starting up, and of course, in a few days it will start. So the registration link will be dropped on the group while the program is going on, so that we can, if you have interest, you can join. And again, on Sunday, God willing, we are going to be launching a very powerful magazine. We are going to be launching a very powerful magazine. That is the Nation Builder magazine. The Nation Builder magazine. Now, the Nation Builder magazine will be launched. Keisha will be live on Sunday, and then of course we'll be having different commissioners come on board to launch the magazine as well. So it's a magazine for educators, and it's on Amazon KDB, is on Seller, and it's on our website as well. So these are more our products. So Eno, you can continue from here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the brief introduction. So I'll go ahead with reading the citation of our speaker tonight. Our speaker, Mafulawel Omokunle, is the Chief Executive Officer of Teach for Nigeria, a non-profit organization that recruits university graduates and working professionals to serve as full-time teachers in Nigeria's most underserved schools. He has experience in non-profit sector with an emphasis on promoting equal educational opportunities for all children. She leads the Basic Education Committee of the Capital Development Commission at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. So, Ma Followay has been here with us since before 8 p.m. and she'll be taking us on practical steps to leading change in your community. I believe every educator, every parent, every child should know the practical steps to lead himself or herself first, and which would extend to the society at large. And we would be glad to have Ma Followay take us through this journey. So permit me to welcome her on stage. Thank you so much.
For that warm welcome, Etty, and it's really very warm, hearing you read my.
Put any book on my bag, in my bag.
Can you hear me? It's an interruption.
Yes, Ma, please, you can go ahead.
Okay. Very good evening. And my name is Folawe Omikole. I know that Etty struggled a bit with pronouncing my name, but it's Folawe Omikole. And I'm really delighted to be here. So very good evening to everyone who has joined, to educators, ladies and gentlemen. And I must commend Lekon and the entire team, for such a laudable platform, that has been put together to continue to support, equip, and empower teachers and educators. It is a deep privilege to be part of this highly esteemed gathering of change agents, of educators, and of teachers. And I think that, the profession has to be the most noble profession in the world, and I can say that anywhere. So I really do feel excited, and at the same time, really feel honored, to be trusted with the responsibility of speaking on this platform. And personally, I've always been inspired by and maybe if we could have my slides, just, the first one, just to be double sure that the slides are on cue. But, I think basically I've just really been inspired by the remarkable work and impact that educators, teacher leaders, teachers, are making, not only across the world and on the continent of Africa, but particularly in Nigeria, given all of the constraints and the resources, and challenge that we have on the continent. And so I'm sure each one of you has perhaps identified a change agent or a community leader that has inspired you in one way or the other. And when I received the invitation to speak on this theme, practical steps to leading change in one's community, I thought very deeply about it. And it was really around, how do I handle this very critical topic? And as a social entrepreneur who has worked within the development sector and being somebody that has had the privilege of working directly with educators and working directly with teachers and leaders who are at the forefront of working within communities and with communities, I was initially tempted to respond to the request to speak on this platform from a place of just giving you key point perspectives. But then I was, so I was going to come here and sort of share, like, here are the list of 5 things that needs to be factored in, when it comes to thinking about leading change in your community. However, what I'm planning to do today is, in thinking through the importance of community development, I realized that, it's as important to not only address the what needs to happen, but also the how. So I'm hoping that at the end of today's session, I will try to bring all these components to life. Okay. Just double checking if the presentation is up now. Etty, Ella, are you still there?
I am here, Ma. I'm
Okay.
here.
Okay.
But I can't see your screen.
Yes. So I thought Lekon was going to, he mentioned to me that the IT team was going to be projecting that. So he's got, I guess he'll need access to present from his end.
Okay, I'll reach out to him right now, ma.
I'll also just double check with him.
Okay, ma. We are so sorry for this. Hello, ma. Can you see your screen?
Yeah. Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you very much. Yes, yes. Okay, great. So if we could just go to the next slide. Thank you very much. Thank you. So before we dive in, I wanted us to start with just acknowledging the landscape in which we are. Can you still see me?
Yes, I can see you. We
Okay,
can see
great.
you, ma.
Okay, great. I wanted to start by acknowledging the landscape and the terrain in which we're currently operating in. Our world has been besieged by pandemic, and for a lot of us, when we think about the 2020, we did realize that dealt us a huge blow, which resulted in just exacerbating the existing challenges and the issues. And sadly, it has shown us that in reality, some of the educational achievements and solutions that we had in the past or that we achieved in the past, will not be sufficient to solve the challenges in education that we're facing today, the challenges that we're facing today in the world and in the society across. No one ever in 2019 would have predicted, the disruption that the pandemic brought to education. Many teachers and students, had to deal with the disruption of the traditional method of teaching. And the teaching profession is now faced with, just a huge amount of complexities and unending demands. And we didn't anticipate, this challenge. And I think it's just important to point out, that some of these realities, some of them, affected students, teachers, parents, government, and even just the general citizens who really were uncertain about how to confront these issues. And I think aside from Nigeria, and talking maybe just to mention some of the issues, digital divide, we had issues around just like lack of electricity and lack of internet for children to continue learning. We had issues that affected the girl child and just sort of like widened gender inequality. We had issues of hunger and nutrition issues that affected children and families. And so when you think about that, then and think about some of the challenges as well in Africa. And next slide, please. I think it's important to just sort of build context around the context that we're working in, and so that because that gives us the insight as to how to lead the change there. Now, when we talk about Africa, it's the youngest continent in the world, and the population of Africa, it's said that in 30 years from now that the population is going to double, and Africa will become nearly a fourth of the world's population. When you think about this, though, and you think about the challenges facing Africa, we're also facing some of the biggest world challenges. To mention a few, poverty. 41% of the world's poorest people are on this continent. There's a deep hunger issue, and there's huge violence, and to bring it to Nigeria, in our own country, where you see from kidnapping to banditry to Boko Haram terrorism, just literally across almost every part of the country. And of course, it's spreading beyond the northern region. And there is infrastructure issues. We just don't have infrastructural capacity across the continent, to develop at the pace that a lot of other countries are developing. There's a huge health challenge. Actually, there's research that shows that 80 million people in Africa could be at the risk of malaria by 2080. When you think of that, like malaria is one of like the most basic health challenge, but 80 million people could be at the risk.
Sabi?
And then
Sabi?
issue. unemployment issue is deep, and then governance issue with just deep corruption across the country. And very recently, the climate change issue, which is affecting, employment of and ability of farmers to farm, provide food for the nation. It's also displacing a lot of people across the continent. And then you think about all these different issues and think about its impact on the education system. Thankfully, when I think about all of these challenges, I think about the sustainable development goals. And I think as educators and as teachers, it's important that when we think about community development, we're thinking about sustainable development. And I definitely think that the sustainable development goals has provided us with a blueprint to achieve better and a much more sustainable future. Next slide, please. And for those who are not aware, like the SDGs, as it's called, so usually it includes poverty, it includes inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, peace and justice, and basically just providing an opportunity for everyone to play a part and to take action. And I think one of the things that I was recently in a conversation at a panel at the ongoing United Nations General Assembly, and I was having conversation with some colleagues, and I said, well, while the SDGs have provided a framework, for development that is sustainable, it is important to note that the SDGs will not solve itself. I think I'll repeat that. The SDGs cannot achieve themselves. Instead, it's the people that must commit to doing what they can to achieve the sustainable development goals. And I think another thing to just add to that is that the SDGs are going to be achieved at grassroots level. Sustainable development goals, whether universal quality education for all, whether gender equity, whether zero hunger, like all of those things will be achieved at community level. And I think that gives a place where teachers have such a huge role to play, and educators have a huge contribution to that, to advancing the sustainable development goals. Imagine the future that Africa and that Nigeria could create by developing the potential of the coming generation. Imagine countries across the continent, if they're able to leverage technology, create employment, advance climate change, foster gender equity, promote good governance, develop more teachers and better curricula, strengthen school leadership, improve child nutrition, and so much more. Like, imagine what that could mean for our continent that is blessed with so much human capital and human resources, and for our country, Nigeria. But all of this will require dynamic, determined, committed leadership. Nigerians, Africans who are addressing today's challenges and innovating for the future. To be honest, I think the bottom line is that it would require deeply rooted leadership across all sectors for this. And that's why I'm really, really proud and really happy, that this platform exists to continue to, advance the leadership of many more people to address the issues that we're grappling with. So in thinking about, some of the Nigerians, some of the Africans that I've met that innovate to address challenges, there are three stories, and you can go to the next slide. There are three stories of leaders that I've seen and that have successfully led change in their community. And those three stories are the ones that came to mind when I was preparing for this talk. Each of these stories will highlight a trait that is necessary in your journey of leading change within community. And please go to the next slide. The first trait is intently listening. And if you see on the screen there to your left, or to my left rather, is Henry Anumudu. And Henry Anumudu, a teacher, an educator, arrived as a primary school teacher in a public school that had a class size of 72 pupils. Out of that 72, only 3 students knew how to read well. All of the students, on top of, aside from not being able to read well, or just having 3 students that could read well, all the kids also didn't have any other practical or vocational skill or any self-sufficient skill. And so it wasn't just a reading issue, there was also just a skill gap issue. And this was primary 5. For many of us, this would be discouraging and this would be a challenge, but not for Henry. And so instead, he chose to ask his pupils, the students in his classroom, the learners, a very rare question. And he says, what do you want from this classroom? And can anyone here recall the last time a teacher asked them that? Or the last time they asked their students that? And I think this really is for you. Do you usually ask students, like, what do you want to achieve from this class? And Henry asked this very simple question to his students. And the students said they wanted to learn how to read and how to write and how to speak English and how to do mathematics. And what Henry did with that was to then structure a classroom that reflected and supported the students to learn all of these things. By the time Henry was done with his children, they were reading independently and they started their own book clubs, they were gathering news and newspapers, and they were independently inspiring their peers to learn. Another thing that Henry did, whilst I still talk about Henry, is a second trait that I think is important. So there's one, which is to listen intently, and listening cuts across. So there's the students, there is the school community of head teachers, existing teachers, colleagues. There's also parents. And I think this also feeds into my next point and the next trait, which is identifying the assets within the community. I think there are a lot of times for people who want to lead change and people who are leaders, there's a mindset that could come from you sort of like having the answers, having the solutions, having all of the ideas to transform a community. But in sustainable change that I've seen and in the traits that I've observed, identifying the assets that already exist within the community is a second trait that is really important. And when I think about this, I'm reminded again about Henry. And when Henry started teaching in a public school, his pupils who came from low-income backgrounds were on the verge of dropping out of school after primary 6, which meant that, a lot of them were either going to end up, finding ways to just fend for themselves because there was just no hope for them to continue on with education with very little and limited resources. And while Henry thought of ideas like providing scholarships and providing support directly to the students, again, he sort of merged listening, engaging with community members here, together with identifying assets. And so what Henry did was then to ask the parents about what ways that they could support their pupils, in this situation. Henry was able to engage parents, and parents were volunteering to be part of providing up to 3 hours of their time in a week to teach students vocational skills across his classrooms. And in fact, this expanded to other classrooms in the school. And so while this improved the parent and community engagement in the school, the students were also learning several skills. They were learning baking directly from people who they were familiar with. So their parents, their aunties, their uncles, people within the society that they knew that looked like them, but that were skilled. They learned soap making, hairdressing, bread making, and imagine now that. Imagine what that could do for our societies, for our communities, and for our country if we leverage the assets that already exist within our community. Think about what that would mean for us as professionals. Think about what that would mean for you as an educator and for the children that we are passionately engaging and leading and teaching. Now, the third thing, and I think a lot of us, it's important that we factor that in, as we think about leading change in community, is empathy, selflessness, and humility. I repeat that again. It's empathy, selflessness, and humility. For me, this is a major key factor that we should deeply engrave in how we approach community development. And I was fortunate again one time to spend some time with another teacher called Badru Hakim, a teacher who teaches in Ogunpa, Ogunloye in Ogun State, for those of you who are aware of the geography of Ogun State. And Badru was the only teacher that remained in the school in the Ogunpa village during the pandemic. He left his family in the town and he relocated to the village to be with his learners. And Badru said if he missed school for one day, it meant that none of the children would have any hope of learning anything. When I think about this story, and of course I've summarized it for this particular session, for me it exemplifies empathy and selflessness by showing that his presence in the lives of the pupils, regardless of the weather or the conditions of the school environment or the remoteness of the village where he was, he realized that he need to make a significant impact, like whatever he did will make a significant impact in who they become. And so I want you to think about Badru's traits and think about our country and think about all the diverse issues that we talked about earlier on. I think that if we're able to have as many empathetic educators as we can, I definitely think that the change that we want to see across our communities, no matter how hard, and how far, I think that we would begin to see. The fourth for me is leadership, innovation, and proactiveness. That is another trait that I think is important that we embody and we sort of consider as we think about leading change in the community. Again, back to another example and another story this was Precious Adedamola. And during the pandemic, again, she realized that there wasn't much localized digital content on science, social studies, and numeracy. And she realized that for things to move, she needed to be proactive. So she raised funds by herself, leveraging her families and her family members and her friends. And she took it upon herself to then digitize. She worked with some other friends and colleagues. And in her living room, she was digitizing the content for science, for social studies, and for numeracy. And what was even so much more innovative was that she adapted it to the Yoruba language for the students, because while she was teaching in the school, she usually needed to interchange between English and the Yoruba language. And she embedded all of this in the digitized content, which she then loaded up onto a tablet and made it available to all her students through the funds that she raised. I must say to you that by the time Precious was leaving the community she used to teach in, they celebrated her like they would celebrate like a royal person, in that community. So when I think about the millions of educators that are in Nigeria, I only can imagine the ripple effect if each one person, takes it upon themselves to solve problems and become leaders of the challenges that we're seeing in the education system. And I tell you, Nigeria will never be the same if that happens. And now I'm going to sort of share with you something, just very recently, and this was also in preparing this speech and this talk. So last week, as I mentioned, I attended the United Nations General Assembly Week and, met a ton of people. I think one of the things that struck me at this year's gathering was just the emergence and the attendance by a lot of young people. So there were lots of young people, young leaders who were, everywhere. And there were also educators that were present. And what inspired me the most is that these young people aren't waiting for permission, to take on the world. And so I had an opportunity to ask them, in preparation for this talk, to ask them for an advice. And they shared with me some of the list of things that they thought people or leaders and educators should consider in leading change within their community, specifically on the African continent. And I just sort of summarized all the things that they shared with me, and they shared about 3 things with me on this front. The first thing they said is you must have a clear vision and be bold and fearless about it. So be clear on your vision, one that is rooted in deep research with super clarity on your why. It is important that you're able to know and you're very deeply convinced about why you're doing what you're doing. why you're trying to solve a challenge, what the challenge is in the first place, or why, and so one of the things that I got from those conversations was it's important to have clarity on your why. Then do not be afraid to talk about your audacious goals or your audacious vision for making a change. And that is one. So you must be clear on your vision and be bold and fearless about it. The second one is you must see community as power. And I think that also emerged in just talking through the traits that we had talked about earlier on. But it's really important from what I heard is that you must see community as power. The experiences and the challenges that we're facing in education, in communities, the social challenges that we're facing in many ways reflect, it's almost like it shows where our weaknesses are. Like it's a reflection of, many things. Like the challenges we're seeing in education is a reflection of many things happening within our society. And this definitely should persuade us and push us to, yes, engage with thinking the solutions, but we must listen and learn from those who are closest to the problems that we're trying to solve. We must engage with them. We must interact with them. We must listen intently without bias. We must listen without, having any assumptions, or just listen very openly so that you can hear about the problems. Because the way that you say it might be different from the perspective that they have. And also work with them. You must collaborate and partner with them. And that's the best way to make it sustainable. That's the best way to get the buy-in. That's the best way for it for the change to last beyond you. Lastly, the third thing that I heard was you must understand that social challenges are systemic. And I'll repeat that again. If you must understand that social challenges are systemic. And really, and I think a lot of people here, like I've heard people say, or leaders and people who are trying to solve problems say things like, oh, if we can just, train all the teachers or recruit the best teachers, across the world, like education problems will be fixed. And that is incorrect. And so it's understanding that the social issues are complex and they're multifaceted, like the challenges, are almost multifaceted, and they stem from systems that can sometimes feel beyond the reach of teachers. And so because of their complexity, there is not one single solution. There's no single silver bullet. There isn't a single solution to addressing the challenges that we see in our education system. And so it requires many solutions from many directions. So it's important to note that you cannot do it alone, and you have to unleash the powers of others to contribute to the solutions. And so take, for example, you're in a school and you're teaching a classroom of kids, in one of the most, let's say Ajegule, which is a rural community and a slum area, either Ajegule or Makoko in Lagos State. And you're teaching the kids and you put the best and the most brilliant and outstanding teacher in that classroom. Well, that classroom is filled with students who haven't had a meal, that day, or haven't had the last meal they've had is the breakfast from the day before. How do you expect teaching and learning to happen within that classroom? There's no magic. There's no amount of learning resources, technology and what have you that teacher could have in their reach to engage and teach those students if their belly isn't fed. But when you think about that, that is not a teacher issue or an educator's issue, right? But what you can do is, with understanding that these are systemic issues, is really to then galvanize and unleash the power of the people that could support, free meals, or ensure that children are being fed, or engage parents, to ensure that they're able to feed their children, or empower parents who are poor to be able to find the resources, to support their children and to take care of their children. So, I think it's just important to sort of have at the back of our mind those three things that I was able to gather from people like you who are currently leading, who are saying that, these three things are important. So having a vision, being clear about it, being bold, about sharing this vision, and then also recognizing that community is your power. Community is power, and you can definitely leverage the insight, the experiences of community to really transform, any community that you might want to change, any challenge that you might want to address. And finally, it's understanding that you're only a piece in this massive puzzle and you cannot solve all the problems, but it's important to see that and see that there is need for you to unleash other people to support and drive the change that you want to see. And as I finish now, I'm sure there's so much more that I can share with you about, the role that we can play in leading change within our community. But I'll just stop here and I'll share a quote that I recently stumbled on by Marianne Williamson. And she said, in every community, there is work to be done. In every nation, there are wounds to heal. In every heart, there is the power to do it. And on that note, I'd like to say a big thank you for your attention, for listening, and thank you so very much for having me. If there are questions, I'll direct it to Lekon and Etty to moderate that. But thank you so very much for your time and your attention.
Wow, wow, wow. That was powerful, Ma. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking us through that powerful presentation. The lecture was amazing. You actually touch many points that have been burdensome to many of us. I would think many educators have had these questions on their minds. You've actually revealed some of the things that have been hidden from us for a long time. Mabunmi Anani mentioned yesterday a powerful quote that we
Red one.
our duty is to bring the society to the classroom
Yes.
and we take the classroom to the society. And this other quote on the screen further nails that point. So thank you so much for taking us through this lecture. If you have any questions, I am sure so many educators here, our participants would have questions on their minds. So if you have any question, kindly send it to DOP at Edu Concept and Services, and we'll link it to Mafolawe Omonkule. So please send your questions to myself or the executive director, and we'll respond. She would respond and will forward them to you. So thank you so much, Ma. Thank you. I would let me just touch some points from what you said, so you would know that we we got the message clearly. I am personally inspired by Henry's story and the other two young leaders. Henry is someone that we should look up to if you are not doing something he's doing, because if you look at students problems, the programs that worked cultivated from programs like empathy, self-awareness, social skills. It's outside the orthodox methods of teaching. So we don't just go to the classroom with our manuals to teach students and ignore these social problems, the problems of hunger, like Mafolo. I'm sorry, I was muted. You don't just go and ignore the social problems that these students experience. You go there with empathy, with compassion, with self-awareness to assist them. I did something sometime early this month. I executed a project. I went to school from my own experience. From my experience, I discovered that I participate in online or global debates. And each time I participate, when I started, I used to feel very timid because most of the time I was the only black girl there. So I would feel very timid. And there was always this question on my mind: could it be that racism is both end? Because even when we are not discriminated against, I am feeling timid. Nobody was discriminating me there, but this feeling was so strong that I knew what to say. I had prepared and studied for the debate, but I was still feeling very timid. So I traveled to the village one time, and as I was discussing with a parent, he told me that the child slumped when he met a white man. So I knew I was not the only one here. That I have been here a few years ago, not so long, in 2020, and I had to put a stop to what was happening. I had to not put a stop completely, like Madam said, that it is systematic. I could only change it within, like, in my reach. So I went to a school, the school I was volunteering for. I went there and I started taking my laptop to school to introduce this kit to people of from other cultures. I created opportunities. Co-host, can you kindly mute? Yeah, thank you so much. I created opportunities where I allowed kids from Africa, a school here in Uyo, to interact with a school from Uzbekistan. So this allowed these people to exchange cultural values and also improve their self-esteem. Because at first, when I measured the impact, the first day was not the same as the fifth day. So this is just an example of what we can do. We can actually analyze what problems are these people experiencing. For me, it was public speaking. It was being confident in themselves. And then I had to draw how I could help them by exposing them to communication outside their race, interacting with people. And when I did a study from Stanford University, there's a study that proves that even briefly, when we interact with people from other cultures, we would be able to minimize prejudice. So that is a very big Henry's story and the other ones, and I also hope my own story jointly inspire someone today. Thank you so much, Ma. I would repeat that if you have any questions, please send it to dop@emeraldeduconcept. Find it a challenge to send group if you're in the Telegram group, and we'll still forward them to her and should respond. Thank you once again, Ma. We are so grateful on behalf of the team at Emerald Edu Concept and Services. We are so grateful to have you. Thank you, Ma.
Very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the incredible work that you all are doing. And well done, Eti. Well done.
Thank you so much, Ma. Moving on, I'll be inviting the representative of the Science Crew Educational Consult for a 2-minute pitch. Welcome on stage. Hello, are you here?
Yes, good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Aminat Joseph. Is it possible for me to share a flyer?
Yes, please. Kindly hold on. The executive director, please stop sharing your screen. Also, let me take this time to invite everyone to open their camera, please, so we take beautiful pictures of you. Please do this for 2 minutes, please. Hello, Ma, please go ahead.
I still can't share.
I can see the science crew on my screen. It's not from us. It's not from us. Just keep trying.
Okay, no problem. It says only the host can share in this meeting, but no problem.
Okay, hold on. Do you think do we have the flyer?
Should I send it to?
Please send it to the director.
Okay, I'll do
Send
that.
it to the director. So, okay, while you do that, Kindly mute yourself, please, ma. Notify me when you are ready. Thank you. So while we wait for her, we'll be inviting the executive director to share the conference announcement. Then after the announcement, I'll be inviting the science crew to pitch for 2 minutes before we conclude for the night. Thank you so much.
Okay. Once again, it has been a wonderful lecture. We could not take any question today. We could not take any question today because we wanted what's it called? Us to have enough time to be able to do some other things, and of course prepare for the panel session. May I say, first and foremost, by the grace of God, tomorrow we are going to the panel session, and of course the panel session we have us, all of us who are going to participate fully tomorrow. It's going to be a panel session. Our panelists, there are about 7 from about 7 countries of the world. And of course, we have the opportunity to interact as educators, issues that are bothering education and that are bothering us generally. Okay, on our first announcement for tonight, I've been receiving messages from participants across board about are we going to have certificate for this program? Yes, we're going to have certificate for the program, for the conference, and it's going to cost about 2,000 naira. That's about $4. It's going to cost about 2,000 naira. The link to be part of the certificate will be sent to us very soon. That's number one. Number two part of our information tonight. Some of one of our partners are having a professional development program. They're having a professional development program for mentors, for educators, and then of course it's going to start in November as well. You can see the phone to reach out to. The program also be put on our on our Telegram page live for us to see. And then courtesy of our partners, we have about 4 partners. Courtesy of our partners. Courtesy of our partners, we are going to we are going to be giving some free slots to participants that have been doing well in the course of this conference. From School Linker is one of our partners. School Linker is giving about 10 slots for educators for their premium course, and then of course another 20 slots for some educators for their general course. So we have School Linker giving about 30 different slots for educators to take their certificate program. That's number one. Number two, we have Mogi Leadership School. The Mogi Leadership School is one of our partners as well. They are going to be giving about 50 slots for participants of this program to take their leadership course for free. It's owned by Michael Oladipo, and it has trained over 50,000 leaders in different fields across the globe. And of course, they are partners for this conference, and they are going to be giving us free slots. So we are looking at people that are active on different spaces, our Telegram and the WhatsApp page that we have. We are going to select 50 people that have been active so far to be part of that. Again, we also have another partner, Peak Performance University. The Peak Performance University will also be giving about 20 slots to take their free courses. So you have about a total of about 150 to 200 slots for educators during this conference that you're going to be benefiting from, based on your activeness and your proactiveness in the conference. So it's a whole lot for us, and then of course we are glad that we are doing this for educators. So in tomorrow's session, we want you all to, as much as possible, we want you also, as much as possible, invite all educators. You are going to have educators like yourself. You are going to have educators like yourself talk about a whole lot of things that affects education and educators. So we want you to be fully part of tomorrow's session. Make sure you are part. Let me quickly share what you are going to be doing tomorrow. Now, this is what you are going to be doing tomorrow. This is what you are going to be doing tomorrow. We are going to be having teachers that have global impacts across board. I myself will be on board. We are going to have Labi from Ghana, Greece, Taiwan, Nigeria, etc. So it's going to be great tomorrow. I want us to invite as much as possible for tomorrow's session. We are going to be looking at impact and learning towards in the classroom. Again, we are also going to be having an expert. We are going to be having an expert among us. She's one of the top experts as far as professional development is concerned, and that is Patricia Degrees. She's going to be speaking live from Germany, and then she's going to be talking about professional development for educators. How do we navigate our journey and, of course, develop ourselves as a professional? So these are the few things we are going to be having tomorrow, God willing, and I want everyone to be part. Like I've said, our STEM educators program is on, our professional development program is on, then our magazine, the Nation Builder magazine, is on. The Nation Builder magazine is on. The Nation Builder magazine is on, and then of course is gonna be launched. We are gonna be welcoming the Senior Special Assistant to the Governor of Ogun State, Mrs. Wonkesho Yombo, on Sunday. Keisha, the Global Teachers Prize winner, will also be live here on Sunday. We're going to be having two commissioners join us on Sunday as well to launch the magazine. And of course, the magazine will be for all educators. You can share with your colleagues. It's quite rich and, of course, good enough for us. So these are few things that we have. And then, of course, for all our partners, we want to say thank you again, once again. Peak Performance University, you can go to www.peakperformanceuniversity.com, take free courses. Then you can go to schoollinker.com, take free courses. You can also go to mogigls.ng to take the leadership programs that are there. And of course, STEM Career Educational Consult, one of our sponsors, have something to say to us. So thank you to all our partners and sponsors. We want to appreciate you. So we will be having STEM Crew come on board now. STEM Crew, is STEM Crew there?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone.
Okay.
Yes, so I sent the flyer to you already. Can you please check?
Okay, let me help you check.
So my name is Aminata Jose. I am the lead program director for the Science Educational Consults, and I'm glad to be here. And yes, from the lecture that we heard from Mrs. Folawe, I think it's very much important that we all try our best to ensure that we fill the gaps. There's so many gaps that we have in our educational system today. One of it is also in the aspect of STEM education. So for we at Science Educational Consults, We are trying to groom future scientists, future techies and tech bros. We are trying to ensure that children, the kids that we're having today, are not going to be having to like go through some mistakes that we have gone through as adults. So we are encouraging them to become tech gurus by teaching them coding, robotics, following standardized curriculum. So we are accredited by STEM.org. That's this American accreditation body for STEM education. We are also accredited by the STEM.org.uk. That's the STEM Learning Institute in the United Kingdom. And they have certified that our programs follow due standards. So a lot of our science programs, our coding programs and robotics programs, they are not just we do not just pick resources or things from just random YouTube or the internet. So we follow standardized curriculum in teaching. So for schools, we help schools in setting up their STEM laboratories. Are you trying to like set up a little science corner in your primary school, or you want to set up even a maker space for your robotic center? So we offer these services to schools. We also help, run teacher training services. We run quite a lot of teacher training services on STEM pedagogy. How can you teach STEM the right way? STEM, we run practical coding sessions. We run practical robotic sessions as well as running clubs in various schools. So for schools, for now, we run a lot of clubs in schools within Lagos and Ogun State. And yes, during holidays, we are open to traveling. We've been to Sokoto State, we've been to Osun State, we've been to Abuja, we've been to Oyo State. So most time we go everywhere to engage young children between the ages of 5 to 16 in practical STEM sessions covering science experiments, coding lessons, as well as robotics education. Thank you. So thank you, Emirat EduConcept, for the opportunity. So if you would like to reach out to us, you can always send a message via the numbers that you can see on the screen. And you can also visit our website, or you send a mail to the Science Crew NG for Nigeria. So the Science Crew NG@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, the Science Crew.
You're welcome.
So like we have said the other time, we also like because we also want to bridge in the gap. We want to bridge in the gap that is in the education sector. We have partnered with Science Crew as well. You could see the partnership there. Ourselves and the Science Crew also, we are looking at having a virtual training program for educators. A virtual training program for educators. We are going to learn about science curriculum, about computing curriculum, coding, robotics. About 20 modules are there. You're going to have 2 live sessions, free mentorship, so you can become a STEM educator. So part of beyond the classroom activity you need to do is to upgrade yourself as an educator. Make sure you are upgrading yourself as an educator. The world is moving towards STEM now. And of course, across the globe, STEM education is gaining ground. So you need to anticipate the future. So that is some of the things you need to do beyond the classroom. And then, of course, again, get your learners acquainted with STEM activities. These are things that are beyond the classroom that you need to do. So we are going to put the link to register in the Telegram group, or you can reach out to this number on your screen if you want to be part of the program. It's a robust program with certificates globally recognized that will certify you as a global STEM educator. So this training is quite important for you as an educator. So on that note, not to waste our time, that's all for tonight. Eno, you can take over as we round up for tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you. While you were talking, I was just imagining how collaboration has been the wheel that has taken education to the deepest part of this earth. Wherever you think we cannot reach, collaboration can enable you to reach those places, to impact life across the globe from wherever you are. So take this chance and collaborate with STEM, collaborate with partners that you've seen us partnered with, partners you've seen us advertise. We are ready to collaborate and work with you to make that vision come alive. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you. It has been amazing, amazing, amazing. It has been very lively and interesting. We want to specially thank our speaker for that awesome lecture. It was very practical, just as the keynote said. It was very practical. So we are hoping that we come again tomorrow. We have 2 more days to take this journey.
Hey, Regina.
Okay, that was another glitch. So we are we have come to the end of this meeting. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight. Please, tomorrow, be available for the panel discussion. Tomorrow is going to be open. You would be there to ask any questions. But today, I would repeat myself. Please send your questions to the executive director of Emerald or email me at dop@emerald
I think we lost on there. So bye bye everyone. Have a lovely night rest, and we'll see tomorrow. Bye bye.